Hi, and welcome to this episode of the cooking demo. Today we're going to be making kitchen cacciatore. So this is a pretty big recipe. It makes 12 servings. You can always serve it over rice or a whole wheat pasta, preferably brown rice. But we'll need a crock pot just to let things simmer all day. Pepper, salt, 3 cloves of garlic, some cornstarch, tomato paste, diced tomatoes with oregano, basil, and garlic, a little bit of dry red wine, an onion, green peppers, some chicken broth, and then our chicken. And so this is a pretty easy dump meal. It's something that you can just make ahead of time and throw it in the crock pot in the morning so that it's ready when you get home. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with having the chicken. If you want, you can cut off the fat. I think it's usually easier once it's cooked to get some of the fat off, and you can always kind of peel it off then. But we'll go ahead and throw that into the crock pot right away. And the recipe calls for chicken thighs, which is what we have, but that's a darker meat. Darker meat tends to be a little fattier, which it's more tender when you cook it, but if you want to cut out some of the fat or help reduce how much fat you have, then I would suggest using chicken breast or the chicken wings. But we have about 3 pounds of chicken meat there. Now for the rest of it, we're going to be mixing it into a bowl and then pouring it over the chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and dump the chicken broth in. And then we need a 1/4 cup of the dry red wine. And we'll go ahead and dump our tomato paste and our diced tomatoes in. There's our diced tomatoes. And now we need 3 cloves of chopped garlic, which we will, or minced garlic, and we'll do a simpler way of that today. So this is garlic press. It is pretty convenient if you're going to be using a lot of garlic. You can also buy the minced garlic from the grocery store. But if you're short on time, it is quite handy. We're going to crush our garlic and get it peeled. And you can just use the knife to press on it to get it a little bit easier to peel for you. Helps crush the garlic a little bit just to get that peel off. And then we'll just cut off the ends. And stick them in the press. have some of the garlic go flying. I'm going to chop this one in half just so that it's easier to get into the press. And now our garlic's minced. Now we're gonna save our cornstarch and our cold water for the end, so I'm gonna set that to the side, but we still have to chop our peppers and our onion. So we cut off the end, carefully scoop out the middle without cutting ourselves. And this white part's pretty bitter, so I usually try to take that out as much as I can so that you're left with just the good flavor of the pepper. And we'll start out with nice long slices. This is called julienne, so if you ever see julienne on a recipe, it just talks about nice thin long strips. And then you can turn it to the side and dice it. That out of the way. And again, we want to cut off that white part. And nice thin stripes. And it's up to you. If you want smaller dices of things, you can have finer dices of the pepper and the kitchen cacciatore if you want smaller dices of it, but you can kind of adjust it to whatever you want. It will cook down a good bit since we're going to have this cooking for 8 to 10 hours. So I think I already got all of the white off of it when I was cutting out the middle, so I'll go ahead and start slicing. And last but not least, we have our onion and then our salt and pepper. Now we're gonna add a dash of pepper, which is about 1/8 teaspoon. And then 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Ooh. Two and three. And stir this all together. And dump it over our chicken. Now I'm going to plug this in and cook it on low for the next 8 to 10 hours, and we'll come back in a little bit with our cornstarch and water to help thicken it up right before we serve it. Alright, it's been about 8 hours, so we're going to add the cornstarch and cold water to it, and the cornstarch is just going to allow the fluid to thicken up a little bit more. So if you want a little bit more juicy and more of a sauce, you can feel free to not add the cornstarch, but cornstarch is definitely going to help it thicken up a little bit, just so it... Alright. And I like using a fork to help stir up the cornstarch, so just get it nice and broken up here. Alright, now we're going to throw this into the crock pot for about 30 minutes, and it should be thick enough, and then we can just serve it over our rice or whatever we want to eat.